Hi, I'm Jeff, the Thrifty Overlander. In this video, we're going to go on an adventure, so come along.
This video is going to cover our trip we did in 2019 on the Mojave Road in Southern California. We started on the east end and went to the west, and we all met at the Avi Hotel and stayed the night there and left from that point. The kind of official starting point is along the Colorado River. To mark the beginning of the trail, we all lined up and did a shot along the river itself. A couple of us weren't there with us yet. They joined us in a few miles. The Mojave Road, for the part that most people take, is about 130 miles, pretty much straight east to west in this case, across the desert. After traveling a few miles, we did find a white spot in the road. I think this is by the Penny Can, and had some lunch. And after that, we did a little detour off the road to the Gold Dome Mill. That's a little ways north of the road, and it's just kind of an interesting old mining mill. It had some visits a couple of years ago from, I guess you could kind of call them eco-terrorists, who did some unique artwork. And basically, you see these in some of these images, it's not actually just painted on. They actually took grinders and cut the black areas out, so you're actually looking through the building, and then for their art piece, they lit it up from the inside. I'm not too big of a fan of this as much as I do have to give them an A for effort. That was a lot of work. After Gold Dome, we stopped at the OX Ranch. It's just an old ranch that's been being preserved by the park now that it's part of the Mojave Preserve. And it's just kind of fun to hang out and look around at the old stuff. Along the route, you kind of go through different sections of landscape. There's the forest of Joshua trees, there's just the wide open expanses, and our ever favorite, the whoops. There's several miles of where you just can't go very fast at all, and it's just all these whoops all the way along there. It really gets old, but that's part of the road. Later landscape that you drive through includes some lava fields. There's a dry lake and some sand dune areas, and of course some wet areas along the Mojave River. For the first night camp, we decided to try to hunt for a good spot in the New York mountains. It's about a third of the way across, and we kind of went up and down some different roads and ended up settling on a nice flat area amongst the trees, and had a really nice campsite. The next morning we had an unusually large breakfast. I seem to eat more when I'm on the road. And after that we visited some ranch areas that's just off of Carruthers Canyon Road as well. One thing that's kind of unique about the Mojave Road is that it's not just a drive across the desert. There's all kinds of things to see along there. There's the mailbox, there's different cabins to stop at and take a look at. There's things like the Penny Can. It's just little odds and ends and everything. There's quite a few collections along the way. Unfortunately, I think these are all being collected up because they're not period or part of the park as it was in the old days, but we got to see them before they're gone anyway. The second day lunch, we stopped at the Corral by Marl Springs, I believe it's called, and a nice hot day, so we definitely had to put the awnings out. Along the route, there is a nice little drop-off spot that has some off-camber ruts that kind of make it kind of fun to play around in, and it certainly gives you a little lesson on the differences in suspension.
Ooh.
Get it rocking.
Totally wheels in the air thing. I guess
This Xterra mine has IFS in front and solid axles in the rear, but not a whole lot of flex. This is Travis's run down the hillside with IFS all the way around. Though this thing is very capable, it's surprising how much it gets through without spinning a whole lot and everything. So, but this is an example of basically IFS. There's wheels in the air several times along the way. Now here's a good example of solid axles front and back with a heck of a lot more flex. His tires don't leave the ground at all.
Yeah. There we are. Is that better? Yeah, that's what we're after. It's all that great articulation.
Sometimes what goes down must go up, and some of us wanted to try out our luck going up the hill with these different off-camber spots. Sean likes to do it. Makes pretty entertaining shots going up the hill with his tires in the air spinning. Another fun stop along the way is the lava tubes. There's a little ladder to get down into them, and they're not cooler and everything down there, and they're pretty neat. We happen to hit the right time of the day when the light's shining down through the openings, made for some really neat photography. After the lava tubes, we went to a kind of interesting spot on the light side of the moon, or maybe it was the Aiken mine, I guess is what it is. This is a cinder mine where they had ran this until not that long ago when the park took it over. And there's always some fun stuff to play around in here, and just to kind of see this lunar landscape is kind of interesting.
Hey, get your ass up here. Pick it up.
For some reason, it seems kind of mandatory for overlanders to find a different pose for their trucks.
I gotta get my truck out of here. Oh, it's been a while on this track. Dust coming out like they're on fire. Oh, oh, he makes it. Oh, man. So close.
The second night, we camped in the Cinder Cove area just north of the lava tubes.
These are Eisenhower steaks.
What is Eisenhower steaks?
It's a steak cooked on oak coals, right on the coals themselves.
Our first point of interest on the third day was crossing the dry soda lake.
This is surreal. It's not as a road, it's actually like a water channel. The river does actually flow through here.
About 2/3 of the way across the Soda Lake is the Traveler's Monument. It's kind of a must-stop location, and the object is that you're supposed to bring a rock either from home or somewhere along the road or something that you contribute to the monument. And there's just some odds and ends and things to look at there for people left behind. After the lake, you run through some dunes area. That's kind of fun for some high-speed goofing around. There was all kinds of play going on there. We made a little pit stop for some snack, I think it was, and filled up some gas along the way. Just as you're about to enter Afton Canyon at the corner of Basin Road, there's an old mine there. It's got some pit areas and stuff. I'm not sure what they mine, but it's kind of a fun little place to drive around. The railroad tracks ran through here, and there's some pretty neat rock walls there. Afton Canyon is kind of a destination in itself. It's got some really neat landscape, and there's some other odds and ends to stop at along the way. You got to get the obligatory train trestle image with the train going over. In Afton Canyon, you're kind of driving down the Mojave riverbed, and not a lot of water there very often, but there's always some, and there ends up being some splashing and some playing going on. There's no two ways around that. Sometimes the river itself just soaks into the ground and kind of travels underground, and you don't see it, and then other times you actually get to splash. Basically, the last thing of interest along the Mojave Road is the water crossing in the Mojave River, and I had to test the waters there, but we got our whole group doing the crossing. It was very interesting. It's plenty deep. It's not really a flowing river through here. It's almost like a giant puddle that you go through. I mean, it is the river water, but it kind of emerges from the ground at this point, and makes for some interesting travel. I think several of us had a funky smell on our trucks for a little while. Here I've got a couple different perspectives of the Jeep that's about the end of the water now. This is Pete, and here it is from his dash cam. Of course, back to the drone shot. For the most part, after this water crossing, we kind of hung out a little bit at the Afton Canyon Campground that's just a couple hundred yards past this point, and kind of said our goodbyes there and went our different ways. It was a really fun weekend. It's definitely a lot to do along this road. It's not just a drive across the desert.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button and subscribe. We'll see you on the trail.